Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 446. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this evening, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber. What's going on, Daniel?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hopefully today we have a lot better podcast.
Oh gosh, yeah, I had to go solo mission last week. Unfortunately, Daniel was having technical issues. Um, I think he's got things squared away this evening. Unusual a guest, Gail from nyfights.com. Fingers crossed she will be with us shortly. She had other obligations to tend to, but hopefully, but the goal is to have her on at some point during this particular podcast. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast site, blog, etc., discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out any and all information, please on Pound for Pound Box Report, please go to the site p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with any comments or questions, you can do so. p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find links to where to catch us all over the social. Excuse me for the background noise. Links to the uh, Facebook page, Facebook, Twitter, IG page. Links to the YouTube channel. If you wish to contribute, we got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. That donation be the best nation. Wouldn't matter to us if it's uh, $1, $2, $5, or even more. We will be grateful for any contribution that comes our way. It'll help the overall out. It'll help the overall productions behind the scenes. Um, Also, links to where to find the show all over the podcast realm, whether it's Anchor, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Box Report. Last but certainly not least, for fellow fitness enthusiasts, for those who want to get their body right, with summer coming up, please check out the link to Body, formerly known as Beachbody on Demand. They have programs for any and all suitable goals and interests. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds. That is a 6 week program, 3 days consisting of boxing based cardio, 2 days consisting of weightlifting. Um, at the very least, check out Body for their 14-day free trial, and that is for 14 days. You can get free access to any and all programs on Body. Also, they got pretty significant deals going around, happening right now for first time subscribers. So if you're interested, please check out the link to Body, formerly known as Beachbody on Demand, on Pound for Pound Boxer Report page. Let's get things going by recapping what the fight that everyone is still talking about. You were skeptical about this fight happening, Daniel, and I'm of course referring to fight for undisputed heavyweight title between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury. It did happen, and it turned out to be a fantastic fight. First half, first 6 rounds, Fury, I'm not going to say he was dominating, but he was getting the better of it, moving very, very well, using his jab, um, combination punching. I thought he got Usyk's attention a few times, but at the midway point, Usyk, as he has a habit of doing, he upped his tempo. Uh, he the interesting thing, even though Fury is the bigger man, the longer man, it was Usyk who was on the attack. You could see him starting to get to Fury, had his nose bloody, I think in round 7 or 8. And then the big round, round 9, uh, coming off of an exchange, he fought, he Usyk caught Fury with a punch I didn't think Fury saw. Big hook, had him wobbly. He was out like a light against Wilder, right, Fury? But he rose up like the Undertaker. This was different in that moment in which he was wobbly, had no legs at all, a more lenient, a more uh, uh, I give credit to the referee for understanding the moment. He could have stopped that fight towards the end of the ninth round when Fury was so shaky and just all just he was gone, right? But Fury, as he often does, outstanding recuperative powers, was able to reserve to gather his senses in the championship rounds. They fought into the final bell. The knockdown was the difference, Daniel, in the end, in favor of Usyk, who basically, if you accumulate it up, won by 1 point, and it was a result of that knockdown to become undisputed heavyweight champion. And I see Gail is joining us right now. Gail from nyfights.com. Welcome, Gail. Welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Glad to make it in. It's been a busy weekend and a busy day. We're still
Well,
talking about what happened these last few days.
all right, get you into the conversation. Since you're here, I can start the normal format and go with ladies first. We're talking about Usyk and Fury, a fight that lived up to the hype, exceeded all expectations as far as I'm concerned. As I was saying, Fury had control. He wasn't dominating, but he had control of things for the most part for the first half. You could see Usyk start to figure things out, up his pace, up the tempo, apply more pressure. You could see the punches started to get to Fury, and then that big round nine, which he had him basically all out of source. He was all kinds of hurt. Credit Fury for gathering himself in the championship rounds. They fought to the final bell. That knockdown proved to be the difference in what turned out to be a clear candidate for 2024 Fight of the Year and one of the best heavyweight title fights in recent memory.
A lot of people describe this fight as a roller coaster. I saw it more as a play in 3 acts. I disagree that Fury was in control from the opening bell. Usyk clearly won the first 2 rounds on my card and most cards that I saw during the fight going on, also on the judges' cards. Usyk controlled the pace and was directing the fight due to the pressure he puts on someone in the ring early on. But Fury is very experienced and a very smart guy in the ring. He's not just all about power and crazy angles and clenching. He saw what Usyk was doing and figured out a way in Act 2 of our play to counteract it and started using the tools he's got, his size, his reach. He started tagging Usyk to the body. A couple times straight, a little low. Referee Mark Nelson kind of said, we're not going to have that. In fact, if you notice, Fury and Usyk touched gloves in that sequence as if to say, oh, yeah, I didn't really mean to do that. Whether he did or not, who knows? So Fury clearly won all the rounds in the middle of the fight. Something very interesting happened after the 7th round of the fight. When Usyk went back to his corner, the trainer, as it was later translated for us, asked Usyk if he wanted his crucifix. And he said yes. So he put his lips to it. Usyk is a very devoutly religious man. And when he came out for the 8th round, that's when the tide started to turn. Whatever your beliefs are, or no belief at all, clearly in Usyk's mind, something gave him a new lease on that fight. And 8th is when he started to come on, started to break through the rhythm that Fury had established in winning all of those middle rounds. And then the 9th came along, and we all know what happened from there. He scored the knockdown. He hurt Fury as badly as Fury has ever been hurt. Fury's been knocked down plenty of times. Heck, Steve Cunningham knocked down Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder knocked him down multiple times, but no one ever hurt him as badly as he was hurt in this fight. He is very fortunate that Mark Nelson called that knockdown correctly, in my opinion, and that it was so close to the end of the round. I have heard criticism that Mark Nelson took too long to assess Fury. And I've heard this before, that modern referees, practically make guys take a sobriety test in the ring. Walk this way, walk that way, stand on one foot and put your finger to your nose. I mean, I get it. referees are getting more cautious with fighters because they have missed serious injuries and have seen fighters permanently disabled or even killed after taking a beating in the ring. And they are rethinking giving themselves a few more seconds of assessment. Now, does that give a fighter more time to recuperate? Yes, it does. And someone like Tyson Fury, who's got the most powerful recuperative process in boxing, clearly it helped him. But the damage was done. Usyk was back in control of the fight. Fury was very cautious in the next few rounds. He did step on it a little in the 12th, but it was in the end not enough to make the difference. A super fight. Usyk did actually, well, I predicted him to win, and I predicted him to win in a more technical battle. But he showed that he's got plenty enough power to hurt somebody. And it's not the kind of raw power that somebody like a Deontay Wilder has, which definitely hurt Fury. Usyk is so accurate with his shots. He knows where to put it to hurt somebody. And he knows how to leverage his feet, the angles, and he wears out his opponents psychologically with the pressure he puts on them. They cannot take their eyes off him or draw breath for a second when he is in the ring. That's what won him the fight. Tremendous performance. And his accomplishments are undeniable. Olympic gold medalist, accomplished amateur, unified the cruiserweight division, unified the heavyweight division, has never lost a fight as a pro. It's quite a record.
Uh, there was some criticism that I've read and that I was listening throughout the fight that Fury, Daniel, played with
Mhm.
his food, right? Uh, taunting Usyk. In my opinion, he spent too much time on the ropes and in the corner. That's where he got hurt, right? When the fight was in the center of the ring and he was popping with the jab, uh, that's where he got the better of it. Give Usyk credit for coming back and figuring things out, but did Fury make it a little harder on himself with his antics, particularly in the first half, first three quarters of up to that point in round 8, 9, when Usyk really started to come on and when he hurt Fury?
It's a combination of both because he's been trying. I'll admit, like I said, I first of all did not think this fight was ever going to happen for the very reasons of the result of the fight. But Fury made it to fight week and he tried his usual mind games with Usyk, like in one of the press conference, not even looking at him in the face off. And in I think it was in the second round where he had that little bit of a dance in the corner. In many ways, like I said, trying to bait Usyk into bum rushing him because Fury does best, even though he has the height advantage and he has the reach advantage and he obviously has the size advantage of being a better counterpuncher in certain aspects. He's better at with a guy coming towards him, but coming in bull rushing, and he's hoping that Usyk was able to do that. I think when he did that dance, and Usyk just stepped back, he realized, okay, he's not going to bum rush me. So what he wound up doing was going to the area that people figured out in the Dubois fight that may be Usyk's weak spot, which is the body. Started landing little right jabs to the body, right hooks to the body, and uppercuts. And you could tell those got to Usyk. Right around the 4th or 5th round, where you could tell that he started to get attention to him. what probably wound up happening, and probably is going to be the main regret for Fury, is I think the game plan was land those shots, land the body shots, hurt Usyk, and then Klitschko. Klitschko him the way he's done other fighters. But he unfortunately relied on that a little bit too soon, and it let Usyk recuperate, and it let Usyk adjust to the movement of Fury. And from right there, from round 7 on, Usyk was applying the pressure. He was doing the better footwork. We all saw what we saw in round 9. Now, the obviously the counting question, the recovery question, is something that has come up before because it's the same argument that people had against Jack Reese in the first Wilder fight. That people felt like maybe the count was a little long. But at the same time, we've seen if you give Fury a little bit of time, he can recover. This was a situation, though, of he got broken down and his usual tricks were just not working. And ultimately, Usyk landed the better shots, landed the more accurate shots, and recovered better against his best than they did. So the main situation is always going to be when it comes to Fury, is because I do believe there is a rematch clause in this. Can he adjust to Usyk coming in the way he did in the second half of the fight? Or is it going to be a similar situation to the rematch with Joshua, where you saw Usyk, okay, Joshua did better, but he still won. And we kind of saw a little bit of the mental breakdown with Fury afterwards in the post-fight, claiming that the only reason that Usyk was given the victory was because of the war in Ukraine. But ultimately, Usyk did something, granted it's only for 2 weeks, that hasn't been done in a century. No, in this century until now. Completely unified the heavyweight division. And like I mentioned, it's only for 2 weeks because the IBF will strip him because they were following the rules. But it gives that perfect cherry on top on Oleksandr Usyk's both amateur and professional career, especially considering he is obviously the heir to the Klitschkos. He accomplished what either Vitaly or Vladimir weren't able to do, largely because they were not going to fight each other.
Sorry, I was on mute. Again, my apologies for the background noise here. Um, Daniel mentioned the rematch, and can Fury make necessary adjustments? Joshua couldn't, right? I think Fury can do do a little better. Well, do I think Fury can do better in the rematch against Usyk than Joshua did against Usyk in the post fight? Fury said they're going to fight again in October. There were also rumors that Usyk may have suffered some jaw damage. Any update on that? Any update on when this rematch, or more importantly, where this rematch will occur? Will it happen in Saudi Arabia again, or will, because Usyk is now undisputed, he has more of a say so where this fight will take place?
I am not 100% convinced we're going to see a rematch, whether it's on the initially proposed date of October 12 or sometime in December or sometime later. Fury did apparently break his nose in the fight. There was discussion that Usyk might have a broken jaw. Apparently, an exam proved that he did not. But no question that both of them are going to need to recover from that fight. If the fight was to hold to its original date of October 12th, they would both need to start their training camp absolutely no later than the end of July. That's not a very long break from now till then. I think that date is a little shaky, frankly. So maybe they put it off till December and it's no longer a unification fight. I think that Fury's chances of winning in a rematch are less than they were of him winning the original fight. And the argument's being made, hey, it's life-changing money. It's a huge purse. Fury made north of $100 million for that fight. Saturday, Usyk made north of $40 million. Usyk's now the A side. Usyk gets to control how this fight goes down, what the parameters of the fight are, and so forth. If I am Oleksandr Usyk, I think long and hard about retiring. I really do. He has an Olympic gold medal. He has unified the cruiserweight division. He has unified the heavyweight division. He is undefeated. He is in his late 30s. His country is at war. He's got a family to worry about. The money does not drive Usyk, not in the slightest. After the Top Rank card on Saturday night, for which I covered here in San Diego, every Ukrainian boxer and family member not named Usyk or Lomachenko was there. And one of the family members said to me, "You don't understand. We are fighting for so much more than ourselves." All of this is going to need to be factored in, and I get that this would be wildly disappointing to people if it doesn't happen, and that there will be a lot of people that say, well, wait a minute, how can they possibly turn down that kind of money? How much more money does a human being need to live on? They already have the life-changing money. I do think Fury would be a little more motivated than Usyk, but again, Fury is also getting up there in age. To be honest, after thinking about it, in some ways, I would rather see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua at this stage. They both have lost to Usyk. It would be a bit of an even playing field. It would be a massive money-making fight, enormous fight in the UK. And I'm not sure you need Saudi money to make that fight happen at Wembley Stadium. But if Turkey would like to put up the funds and like to establish a presence inside the UK, now's the time to do it. So I think we're going to see some very interesting discussion. I imagine in the weeks to come, the rumor mill will go nuts, and we'll see what happens.
Come on. Let's move on to some other fights here. I'm going to split these up between you, Daniel, and Gail. On the undercard, right? Jai Opetaia, who we've talked about glowingly over the past few months, fought the rematch against Mairis Briedis, Daniel. They first fought in July 2022. Opetaia fought with a broken jaw for most of that bout, ended up winning by decision. Rematch here, and strange the way the fight went. It was Opetaia fought more. I thought he would be a little bit more aggressive in this fight, but he was not. He fought more at distance, more cautious. Was winning most of the rounds, but he wasn't dominating. And then in round 10, he got buzzed. And that's when Briedis woke up, poured it on. I'm not going to say Opetaia was seriously hurt, but he was in a moment of distress into the final bell. Did this fight, even though Opetaia won by decision, did he get a bit exposed here?
I wouldn't say exposed because we have to give credit to Briedis here. This man has been a former champion. He's been in many ways up to Josh made his name to the scene, like the bridge between Usyk and Jai. Would you consider people that you can be really dominant and can unify the cruiserweight division. Briedis is that bridge. And he showed it. He showed grit. He showed that he was going to be in the fight, and yet you were going to have to take him out in order to do it. Now, you also got to take into account Jai's still relatively young in his career, and a lot of times you always have to take lessons from the old heads once in a while, even when you're on top. And this was a good lesson for Jai to learn. He was doing a good job of maintaining distance. He was doing a good job of winning on the scorecards. But a lot of times, you have to take the fight to your opponent and you have to take them out, because if not, they are going to be more determined to take you out. And he almost learned that lesson the hard way in that night. Good win overall. I don't know if this would be Briedis' swan song. It may be, but Jai probably learned a really good lesson where your skills can win it out. You can be cautious, but there's got to be at times where you have to take the person out, or they're going to take you out.
And I think in a strange way, Opetaia opened himself for some more fights, right? He's wanted um, to unify, right? But he's been so dominant um, uh, in his last few outings. I questioned whether the other champions would want to get in the ring with him. I think they would be more tempted to do so, given how vulnerable he looked in the championship rounds. Chris Bellum Smith has a upcoming title defense against Riatport, I believe. If he were to win, I would not mind seeing Riatport and Opetaia. Zerto Ramirez, if they could make a fight with Opetaia, get him over here to the United States, right? On a Golden Boy card on the zone. I wouldn't mind seeing that either. So I think in a strange way, Opetaia's call for unifications, he will get more of an opportunity to engage in unification bouts moving forward. Also on this card, Gail, one of the bigger upsets of the evening as Anthony Cacace, right? Stopped Joe Cordina. I think it was in round 8. Weird moment here, right? Where round 3, there was a break and Cacace hit Cordina during that break from the referee, hurt Cordina, and Joe Cordina was never the same. He fought on, but it seemed like he never gathered his bearings. He never gained his sea legs, right? And slowly but surely, Cacace began to wear him down. It seemed like he hurt Cordina from that moment on with every hard punch he hit him with, and ultimately stopped Cordina. So credit Cacace for the win, but is there an asterisk with this win, given that what some feel is a questionable moment in the 3rd round?
Whether it was questionable or not, it is on the team to let the referee know or file a protest or ask the fight be stopped. And they didn't. So they clearly didn't think Cordina was that badly hurt. And I'm not sure he was. I saw it more as being rattled or startled. Credit Cacace, though. This is a guy who in 21 fights only had 7 knockouts. There is no way he looked like a guy who was 21-1 with 7 knockouts in that fight. He took it to Cordina and took him to the woodshed. You know, Cordina has had a really good run. He himself came out of nowhere. He's likable. He's sellable. But I wouldn't say his last couple of fights have exactly been blockbusters. So was this simply the way that Cordina's career was destined to go? You know, did he run into a guy that was extremely motivated, who wanted to make the most of his opportunity when he finally got one? Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah, we saw a lot of fighters over the weekend that prevailed because they had the will in addition to the skill. It was their will, their heart, their drive that allowed them to put it together. Some perhaps came as a surprise. But that is how boxing works. I'm delighted for Cacace. I'm interested to see more. He's very new to a lot of us. Good for him. Cordina, this doesn't necessarily need to be a fatal blow to him, but he does have some work to do now.
Could you see a scenario where a rematch occurs here? Follow up question, Gail.
Possibly. I think the teams would have to figure it out. I do think Cordina's team let him down. If they were really concerned that he was hurt, they needed to have said something at the time. Um, rematches are rarely the revenge most guys imagine, before they happen. Most rematches go very much along the lines of the first fight. I would think long and hard before Cordina takes a rematch. And if he's smart, maybe he buys a little time, enough time for Cacace to get another fight and see how he looks and see if it was maybe lightning in a bottle. Wait him out a little bit and then take the rematch. As we're going to see this weekend, sometimes the UK feds are perfectly happy to wait a long time for a rematch.
Let's move from the Middle East to the States. And Giovani and Santillan, ranked number 1 by the WBO, heading into this fight against Brian Norman Daniel. The Cordina loss was a surprise, but this performance by Norman was a surprise against Santillan. I felt that Norman was a good fighter. I didn't see anything special. I'm not saying that Santillan was special because he's number 1, but you have to be impressed with the way Norman performed. If you want to comment as well, Gail, you can because you covered the fight. You was live in the building. I like the calm professionalism of Norman. Young kid at 23, but he's more mature than his age. Solid fundamentals, good power, and he has some hellacious uppercuts that ultimately hurt Santillan and took him out in brutal fashion.
Oh yeah, this one was brutal. Now, give full credit to Norman. He landed the shots accurately. He used great footwork and was precise in landing those uppercuts that ultimately won him the fight. On the other side, unfortunately, this is the knock, I think, on Robert Garcia fights, because I do believe that Robert Garcia was in the corner on that night. They're great offensive fighters. They're going to give you a fight on the offense, but they just aren't really well rounded on defense. And that's what Norman used. And that's what Norman used when they came to that area to land the shots right on the gap or where Santillan was trying to guard, particularly in the uppercuts. And like Gail mentioned before, we mentioned in the Usyk fight about referees being a little bit cautious when it comes to fighters. You can make the case that Ray Corona maybe wasn't as cautious as he should have been after the first knockdown. Because that first knockdown, that uppercut, Santillan almost fell on his face. The only way he didn't fall is because he was holding on. And then just the way he crumbled up and knocked down that ultimately won the fight. Those are the things that you look into. Those are the things that you hopefully don't lead to anything long term. But it's a great victory, great upset for Norman. And when it comes to Santillan, I'm not going to say immediately that, oh yeah, you should have corner change, but this is the main knock on Robert Garcia fighters. The defense is always the part that you need to fine tune those fighters. And it especially showed here with the way that Santillan lost.
And Gail, because I want your comments on this as well. Maybe Norman is better than a lot of folks gave him credit for.
Yeah, let me make the correction. It's Santillan, Giovani Santillan.
Santillan, my apologies. Thank
And
you.
yeah, he gets his last name butchered a lot. I feel his pain. Yeah, this was in theory Santillan's fight to win after having ground out a very long career in the shadows, getting that terrific win against Alexis Rocha. But here was Brian Norman Jr. in his way. Brian Norman Jr. is one of the fighters handled by a fairly new management team, Fighters First Management. And the woman that runs Fighters First, who is Norman's manager and acted as his matchmaker, is Jolene Mazzone, who worked for many years with Main Events and for many years worked with Arturo Gatti. She believed in Norman Jr. She has a stunning eye for talent. And she was the one that agreed to the fight. And I heard this and thought, what I really wanted to say to her was, what the hell are you thinking? One of the most promising young guys in your stable who's undefeated. Instead, I think I said something to her like, oh, well, that's pretty brave of you. And here I am sitting ringside, and she had moved over from wherever she was sitting and sat right in front of me, actually right up next to the ring, right behind the timekeeper. And she was right. Whatever she saw, she made the right match. Norman's offensive assault was impressive. He had Santillan's number from the start of the fight. And you're right. Robert Garcia was in Santillan's corner, and he gets his guys pressing forward. And ironically, that had been part of the knock on Santillan, is that he was proficient, but not offensively very aggressive or exciting. Well, that ended up being his ruin on Saturday. And it was a terribly destructive loss. You know, guys are usually much better off when they get taken out by that one hitter quitter punch. You know, we've all seen it. Somebody absolutely decked, lights out cold before they even hit the canvas. And 4 minutes after they get up, they're walking around like they're fine. When you're beat up like this, when you suffer a bad cut, and Santillan did over his left eye, deep, deep gouge, and then Norman clearly broke his nose in the, I think, 8th or 9th round. And so it looked even worse than it probably was, because there was so much blood in the ring and so much covering Santillan. I hope nobody's eating dinner. You know, if you are, you might want to shut the audio off right this minute. Santillan looked like he was in the finale of the movie Carrie. It was hellacious. And when you're taking that kind of beating from somebody, it's like someone tied you to the bumper of a truck and dragged you down a rocky, bumpy road. It was rough. I'm not quite sure why Ray Corona let it go as long as he did. A lot of observers thought, I think he probably should have ended it before he did. Norman knocked him down twice. The second one was particularly bad before Ray waved it off. But, you know, these Southern California judges are very familiar with the fighters. They know how they are. Santillan's a veteran. He's tough. He never lost, but I don't think he'd ever been knocked down. He probably wanted to give him the opportunity to go out on his feet, and just wasn't going to happen. Bravo to Norman. This was an enormous step, because this interim WBO belt will become a full belt, likely, after, assuming the planned fight between Terence Crawford and Israel Madrimov takes place August 3rd. If he moves up and takes that fight and it happens, these belts are all going to end up being vacated. and Norman Jr. will be elevated. Jolie Mazzone told me they would probably wait to assess his next move until after that happens to see what his options are in the welterweight division. But he is the first champion under their banner, and they're going to hopefully continue to make some real good moves with him. Santillan, I hope he recovers well. I hope he decides to come back. He's still got a lot to offer and a lot in the tank. It is not impossible for him to come back from this, but he does need some time out of the ring. With a broken nose, a pretty bad cut, and your first loss, that is tough. He'll go back to his local gym here. I know for a fact his crew there is waiting for him. They are Team Geo all the way, and I think that will go a long way toward helping him move forward.
Indeed, in the main event, um, you mentioned during the discussion about Usyk's win over Fury how you had talked to a countryman of Usyk ringside for that card. He talked about they're not just fighting just to get a win in a boxing match. They're fighting for much, much more. You can argue, make a strong argument that um, Dennis Berinchyk was that case. But before we go there, I want to give a shout out to Beagle, who's joining us in the live chat, loyal listener. He says, comment from him, appreciate you guys we're on a Monday. Norman is a good fighter, uh, but he was losing on the cards. Still think he has a ton of potential, but just not realizing it, which is not to disrespect the win. Um, he also says that oh, he wants to retract that above statement. He's I was looking at the wrong card. That's okay. That's okay. He also mentioned like a golf mug, and that's okay. But anyway, let's move back to the main event. Dennis Berinchyk, right? Fought Emanuel Navarrete, three division champion. Gil Navarrete got all the coverage heading in, uh, but Berinchyk 36 years old, very slick, a lot of guile. This was a sloppy fight. I didn't like the way that this fight was being covered on ESPN. Too often, in my opinion, there was some favoritism towards Navarrete. Didn't give Baranchyk the credit that he deserved for the things that he was doing. But you know who did? Two of the three judges who scored the fight his way. He gets the win over Navarrete, become vacant WBO to win the vacant WBO lightweight title. Uh, Talk about that aspect in terms of Ukrainian pride and I felt the underrated skills of Berinchyk. Gail, since you covered the fight ringside, and maybe this is the first sign that Navarrete need to take care of himself outside of the ring in terms of his controlling his vices, controlling his diet and nutrition, and get his butt back down to 126 to 130 pounds where he deserves. Because to me, he's not a lightweight.
No, that was the problem. He was moving up in weight, because he's just refused a nutritionist. He sort of refused that discipline outside the ring. I mean, he thinks that training hard is going to be enough. And, when you get to be an older fighter and you've got, your leisurely habits outside the ring, no, you've got to live the lifestyle. And the older you get as a fighter, the more important it becomes. But here he wanted to try his luck up here at 135. It didn't go so well for him. Berinchyk, there was no craft involved in this fight. There was no finesse whatsoever. It was wild. Navarrete is just sort of a wild child in the ring and always has been. Berinchyk just kept pressing, kept coming. And he was clearly inspired by what had happened earlier in the day. Usyk reportedly called him right before the fight to wish him
He
well.
was watching the fight from
Watching the
Saudi
fight.
Arabia live.
Yep, he was. They had talked before the fight, And every single Ukrainian, like I say, that wasn't named Lomachenko or Usyk was in San Diego. Oleksandr Vosdik was there in the corner. Sergey Derevinchenko had been here in San Diego with him all week. Artem Delakian was there. Sergey Bochuk, who just won that minor belt over Brian Mendoza on the Zoo Fundora undercard. He lives in LA. He was here. He had a significant cheering section. You know, the Ukrainian fans show up, and they are fighting for more than just what's in front of them. I will say this. I was somewhat aware sitting there ringside that the ESPN commentators were irritating the boxing community because they weren't giving an accurate assessment of what was in front of them. Well, you know, everybody has sort of been jonesing for Navarrete, and potentially Lomachenko was being talked about. And I get wanting to make something happen, willing it into existence. But everyone on Media Row around me, some very smart people, including Lance Pugmire, trying to think of the other folks that were present. In any event, some very knowledgeable folks. Every one of us on Media Row, Ernesto Amador, saw it going for Berinchyk. No, not even a question. So when his hand was raised, even as narrow a victory as it was, by the end of the fight, we weren't all that surprised. Now, how will he do against the cream of the division? I think it'll be a little tougher than his fight was on
I
Saturday.
mean, listen, he called Shakur Stevens' name.
Yeah.
Give him
Well,
credit for showing heart of a champion and willing to fight the best.
he and his
But
team
no,
know that that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Here's the deal. Shakur has one more fight on his top rank contract in Newark this summer. After that, he needs to negotiate and decide where his future lies. I guarantee you, Top Rank will say to him, listen, you want to re-up with us, we'll feed you Berinchyk. You know, he's got a belt. It's easy pickings. Shakur will take care of business. And then they can talk about potentially teeing up that Stevenson versus Lomachenko fight. It's part of a deal. So expect to see that. It is not going to be Berinchyk versus Lomachenko. He does not want to fight a countryman. He would probably only do it if it was the absolute last option available to him. But we'll see what happens next. I think that if all goes according to plan and Stevenson and his team are smart, you know what greener pastures can they run to? Top Rank has stood by Stevenson despite some just god-awful fights. He is not a moneymaker. He does not put people in the seats. So he needs to dance with the one that brought him. That's all I'll say. As for Navarrete, he needs to get on the straight and narrow. He needs to go back down to 130. He still has a belt there. He was smart enough to hold on to that, not run away and not vacate. So he needs to go back there. But the way he was talking about himself after the fight, I think he wants to stay at 135. And I think that is a big, big mistake. But it was right after the loss. You know, as he clears his head and talks to his team and thinks more about it, I hope he reconsiders that comment.
agreed 100%. I have nothing to really add on in terms of your commentary. Solid win by Berinchyk. If Shakur decides to stay with Top Rank, you're probably right. They may feed him Berinchyk, though. Don't be surprised following his title defense in July if Matchroom is looming and tries to scoop him up to a deal. Just putting it out there, just let folks know. Hint, nod, wink, wink. And in terms of Navarrete, no, 35 is not his future. I know he's talking about after in the post-fight interview saying he wants to, he thinks that he compete at 135, not against the elite, not against. If you can't beat Berinchyk, imagine how he would have fared against a Loma. Imagine how he fares against a a Shakur. Imagine how he would fare in even a fight against someone like Keyshawn Davis or a Moratala at 135. His future is 130. I think he can still make 126 if he ever got his act together, put down the booze, and stop eating so much junk food, including eating M&Ms during the pre-fight interview with Tim Bradley and the crew. If he handled himself that in that department, he can still do very well because he still has a belt. Correct me if I'm wrong. At 130 pounds. So for me, yeah,
Mhm.
move him back down. Um, let's move on. If I'm gonna open the floor up to you, Gail and Daniel, because we are running this thing right back on a Monday. Not much news I was able to gather, um, other than Clarissa Shields basically putting down $100,000 bet who for anybody to step to her in a street fight and fight her, whatever. Outside of that, any news? What have you been hearing news wise in these boxing streets?
I'm going to add just one thing. Well, actually, two things from Saturday night's card. This is I think, the third top ranked card in the last 2 years that's brought themselves to San Diego. Boxing's in a good place. I have never seen a livelier crowd here in San Diego than I did for this fight on Saturday. And no doubt a whole lot of those fans were up early on the West Coast to watch the card from Riyadh. Before the bell fight started at 7 in the morning. The pay-per-view started at 9. Here we were. It was there were some sections in the upper deck curtained off, but of the rest of the arena, it was full. They were in their seats early, and I mean like 4 rounders early. They were into it. They were loud. It was smart that there were 3 local fighters on the card, Santillan being one of them. But the other main draw was a very accomplished young amateur, Johnny Mansour, making his pro debut. He fought a very nice 4 round decision. He was never challenged in any way. That kid put a ton of butts in the seats. He doesn't have a Ryan Garcia type social media following, but for a young man, it's pretty darn robust. He's got a whole lot of influencer business going on. He also happens to be the first Chaldean American professional boxer. There are not a whole lot. And San Diego is home to the second largest Chaldean community in the United States, second only to Detroit. Let me tell you what, they were there. They were there. That's a terrific constituency for him to own, a American of Middle Eastern parents. So he looked good. He's a 2023 U.S. Golden Gloves national champion at lightweight. It's a lot of promise. I think that Top Rank, he had that debut. I don't believe is officially signed to Top Rank, but they do this all the time. They pluck an amateur out. They give him or a young fighter. They give him a couple of fights or one, and then they snap him up. So I think that we'll see that happen, which is awfully good news. I am really done, on the other hand, with all these fighters jumping on Twitter Spaces and yapping with the public and picking fights with each other. You get paid to fight in the ring. Do not do it for free. Please. I'm just done with that. Clarissa, honey, you don't need to do this. You're above this. Knock it off.
Any news? Any news from your end, Daniel?
Only thing that I saw was that Teofimo was now confirmed to be fighting in June. I'm surprised he picked this venue, the James L. Knight Center in Miami. I would figure he would try the AAA or Cacace Center, whatever they want to call it. It's always going to be AAA in my eyes. But James L. Knight Center, it's a good venue, June 29th. Hopefully he gets a good victory this time because people are still clowning him about the Jermaine Ortiz fight. I don't blame him for it, But with the gap of 140 being a little bit empty at the moment, I wouldn't mind seeing Teofimo come up and actually live up to the moment.
Can we please have some consistency from Teofimo? Who is the real Teofimo Lopez? Um, is it the guy that we saw against Lomachenko? Is it the guy that we saw in his against Cambosis? Is it the guy we saw against Josh Taylor? Is it the guy who struggled against Sando Martin? Um, you can't figure this dude out in terms of what kind of fighter is he really. uh I just want consistency. If you're going to perform, you can't talk the way he talks and yet be flat and yet fight flat on the number of occasions he has. Professionalism is not fighting to the level of your opponents. It's creating a standard for yourself and upholding that standard whoever you're in the ring with. I'll say it again. I need some consistency, and he needs to be put on a good show, not just a good ring walk in this upcoming uh, title defense, because that's not going to, what we saw last time out from him, that ain't going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. Let's move on to some fights here to preview. Um, where do I want to start? Let's start in Canada first, Gail. Um, Christian Mbilli, he's ranked number one. I wouldn't put him amongst the elite at 168 pounds, but he is one of the more exciting super middleweights in the world. Given his last fight, which a lot of people saw him for the first time, entertaining style, he returns to the ring on the 25th in Quebec on ESPN Plus against Mark Heffron. Talk about this fight if you will, but word on these boxing streets is that if he wins, he's going to fight someone that you saw in the attendance for the Berinchyk fight that could be up next. One Berinchyk, if that happens, uh, let's have that happen. I would love to see it.
I don't think you mean Berinchyk with Mbilli.
Not not Berinchyk, but Deverenchenko. Excuse me,
Derevchenko.
Deverenchenko.
Derevchenko, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, watching Derevchenko walk around in his street clothes, God, he looks way undersized for 168. That he's even competitive is amazing to me. Mbilli is a damn good time. He's an offensive, power punching kind of juggernaut. He's a big personality in all the right ways. The Canadian fans absolutely love him, support him. This is yet another good fight to keep him busy, which I appreciate. He is one of those guys that will stay busy, even if the opponents are always a challenge for him. So he's well worth watching. There's not a whole lot of fight action this weekend. Otherwise, there's really nothing in the United States because it's Memorial Day weekend. So it's well worth taking a look. And Canadian cards are awfully fun to watch for a lot of reasons. Just enjoy it. Get to know Mbilli because it is going to be time for him to step up. I do think he's circling a little bit because we know those belts that Canelo holds are going to fall away one by one by one. And was just having a chat with somebody about this. You know, Canelo has more than proven himself worthy of those belts. He's defended them several times. He does not need to hold on to all of them. The truth is, if any of those sanctioning organizations order mandatories, he'll just say, thank you, no, here's your belt back. He doesn't need them. He doesn't need them to sell a fight. Even if he gave up all four major sanctioning organization belts and only hung on to the Ring Magazine belt, that'd be just fine with him. Actually save him a lot of money out of his purses, not paying the sanctioning organizations. When that happens, Mbilli can jump on one of those vacant belts, go for a title. I would say he should be tackling David Benavidez next, but I'd say really anyone short of Benavidez, and yes, even Jaime Munguia, he put up a damn good fight. Let's see him take a chance on himself But in the meantime, enjoy him for as long as his fight lasts this weekend. Yeah, he is just he's the super middleweight version in some ways of William Zepeda. He's an absolute buzzsaw in the ring. He knows he isn't getting paid by the hour, and there are very few feeling out rounds where he's concerned, which is why he's become so popular among people who've had the chance to see him.
Indeed. The most quote unquote high profile fight of the weekend, if you want to call it that, is taking place over in England, Daniel. The rematch between Taylor and Catterall. As all boxing fans know, they fought a little over 2 years ago, back when Taylor was undisputed at 140 pounds. Fighting in his backyard, Taylor, uh, Catterall gave him all kinds of fits, put him down in that fight. Taylor won by split decision, but a lot of people felt, myself included, that Catterall beat him that evening or that afternoon. For those who are watching the fight here in the States, um, it's been kind of all bad for Taylor since he hasn't won,
Yep.
and um, um, since becoming undisputed against Ramirez back in 2021. Uh, he's been beset by injuries, and the only other time he's been in the ring since that Catterall fight, uh, he got outboxed and outfought by the aforementioned Teofimo Lopez back June of last year. Uh, I ain't gonna say his career is in the balance, but he needs a significant win to gain some momentum here. Your thoughts on the grudge match, the rematch between Taylor and Catterall?
First of all, I'm glad it's happening because there is some real bad blood between these two. And for Taylor, I wouldn't say I would agree. His career wouldn't be on the line in this sense, but in many ways, his pride will be. Because right before the Catterall fight, and granted, yeah, we know about the contractual issues that happened beforehand, we were talking about him versus Bud at 147. To go from there, to have that conversation of you being seen not only as an opponent for Bud Crawford, but seen as somebody that might actually give Bud problems, to that brutal fight with Catterall, the first fight. And then coming out with the victory that, in many people's eyes, was undeserved. And then you try to do a rematch, you get hurt. And then you get into a fight with Teofimo, and you pick a fight a night where Teofimo was actually on his P's and Q's. And now you're going to put here in this situation where the other guy already believes that he beat you. And in many ways, I can agree, Catterall did beat him. So to me, it's more of a matter of pride, not much his career, but a matter of pride for Taylor, that he has to come in and he has to show that, as close as that fight was, those judges giving him the victory should be seen as the right decision, not as some guy getting, in Catterall's case, getting robbed of a victory. Can I see it happening though at this stage? I don't know. Catterall is also fueled by the fact, like, he's got that, to me, that Amanda Serrano syndrome. He's essentially avenging a win in this rematch. And once he has that, he knows 140, 147, the way things are lining up. There's some really nice big money fights possibly in the future for both guys, depending on when they win. But more for Catterall in the sense because he might be seen as a guy going up. Whereas Taylor might be seen as a guy that starting to plateau, hopefully not on his way down. But I'm going to love how these two guys come into it. You know that bad blood's going to factor into it. And we've had a year of unexpected classics so far, and this might be another one.
Absolutely. And I think we may end things on that note. because I want to get this in get this episode done on time. And I know Gail, unless you want to put in a final word on this, you've been talking a lot of boxing over the
Oh,
past
no, no,
48 to
we're
72 hours. So
not hanging the show on me. But Daniel, I'm not as optimistic as you are that this is going to
is
be
Taylor shot?
a good fight.
Is he past his best,
I think
given
he's
all the injuries and the age?
yeah, I think he's past his sell date. He's not particularly old. He's 33. I'm going to verify that. Yeah, he's 33. He's had some pretty hard fights. He did not look good against Lopez, speaking of Teofimo. Um, that fight against Catterall, which is now almost 2.5 years ago. That's a little bit of a stretch, but it is way over 2 years ago. He did not look good at all. Those are the only two fights he's had in the last 2 years. Ring rust is not a good thing. So that's going to be an issue. Meanwhile, Catterall has been far busier. He had a break between the Taylor fight, then fought Dara Foley, which that was not a very difficult fight. He won it by decision, and it was a blowout on the scorecards. And you can argue that his win over Jorge Linares was over a guy who's also old and on the decline. It was a very good win. And say what you will about Linares, he still at his age remains dangerous and has some power. So I think it's not going to be very competitive, but this is one time I would not mind and would love to be proven wrong. And that is the main fight action this weekend. So I'm hoping that that card from Leeds delivers some good entertainment for us.
Yeah, and I think we're going to end things on that note. I want to thank those who commented in the chat, if, including Beagle, regular loyal listener. If you're checking us out on YouTube, if you have not done so, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Particularly subscribing to all episodes will get you notifications on future episodes of Pound for Pound Box Report. Um, Begin the show with ladies first. Of course, end the show with ladies first. Gail for nyfights.com. For those who want to talk any and all things boxing, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
It's nyfights.com online. And despite rumors to the contrary, no, it's not shut down. No, I am not gone. No, a lot of our writers are not gone. There are a couple of personnel changes, and that's it. So we carry on. Hey, boxing journalism, boxing media at this point, kind of a crazy world. What can we say? You can find me personally at PR Pro San Diego on most social media, my day job that pays the bills. And while it was a hella good weekend, that was a long ass day of boxing. Mine went from 7 midnight on Saturday. It was a good thing I could sleep in yesterday, but I'll be ready for a really nice summer schedule to come. We'll be talking about those fights as they come up.
Absolutely. I go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk um, pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
All right. It's the same everywhere, folks. Twitter, I will never call it X. I don't care if you change the domain name, Elon. Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Rockstar99, RAWKZ99. Catch me on there. Like I said, we've had a good year so far in sport. Granted, it's a little bit tainted considering where the funds are coming from, but we've had somewhat of a good year. Hopefully, we get into the midway point and we have a little more interest. I have a little bit of hope that Taylor Catterall will give us a little bit of a sleeper banger in a way. Because otherwise, if Taylor's really as shot as Gail believes he is, that's going to be a sad sight.
For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter because I'm like Daniel, I refuse to call it X. Brother JR at Brother JR76 for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance with yours truly on IG and TikTok. You can do so, Brother JR. SC. For those on the next episode, excuse me, we will do a recap of Mbilli. His fight against Mark Heffron again. That's going to be March 25th, Quebec, Canada. You can find it on ESPN Plus. The rematch between Taylor and Catterall is going to also take place on the 25th from Leeds, England. That will air on the Zone. We also may dive into, excuse me, talk a little Dina Thorsland, who is um, unified women's champion at bantamweight. She defends her title in her home country of Denmark, and we will do a preview of I think it's the 5 versus 5 or 5-on-5 series between Queensberry and Matchroom. That's going to take place on Saudi Arabia June 1. Deontay Wilder fighting Zilly Zhang. Dmitry Bivol, who will not be fighting Bertabiev. Bertabiev, as we all know, is injured. Instead, Bivol is going to defend the WBA light heavyweight title against Malik Zinad. Also on that card, Daniel Dubois fighting Philip Hergovich. There's a backstory there in which Dubois and Hergovich fought, a spar, excuse me, and from what I've been reading, all indications was that Hergovich got the better of Dubois in that sparring session a few years back. So we'll talk about that fight. Ray Ford defending the WBA featherweight title for the first time. He's fighting Nick Ball, who a lot of people remember. Spirited effort against Ray Vargas. A lot of people felt that Ball beat Vargas when they fought when he fought him. And so we will talk about that fight as well. Ammo Williams is fighting on that card, as well as former world light heavyweight title challenger Craig Richards. So again, that is the m- Matchroom versus Queensberry 5 versus 5, 5-on-5 series that's happening in Saudi Arabia. We will do a preview of those fights. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the YouTube chat. For Gail for nyfights.com, for Daniel for Boxing News, and the Again Scriber, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 446 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Again, my apologies for the background noise you've been hearing from my end. I'm going to try to get that fixed by the next episode. So, again, episode 446 is in the books. For Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.